With us now is Rich Kaalaas, and we met virtually, and he is calling to us from Seattle. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Donna. I'm doing well. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good. We reached out a couple of months ago. We were talking about the fact that you did a very famous logo. And what was that logo back in, was it 1990?
1990 was actually the logo for a startup company called Wizards of the Coast.
And what was that early moment like? What was it like back then when this was first starting?
It was pretty exceptional. When you think about the concept of a group of friends getting together and saying, hey, let's start a company, the odds of it actually being successful are fairly low. But headed up by a good friend of mine, Peter Atkinson, who was the CEO of the company. He took us on a journey that was pretty amazing. So yeah, I was very lucky to be part of that.
What were some of the early wins back then? How did you know that you guys were onto something?
Early wins. I think it goes back to just the team that were the sort of charter members of Wizards. Their creativity and everything was just pretty, amazing and fun. And understand too, this group came out of the group that I played Dungeons and Dragons with. So when Peter got us together, he just said, I think we can do this better than TSR, which is the company that currently at the time had owned Dungeons and Dragons. And so we created a game system, which we call a cap system, which would allow your Dungeons and Dragons characters to basically ascend into demigods and then this whole sort of god and deity structure. So,
and prior to that,
that was one of our first wins, was the Primal Lord. It was really well received and so forth.
Now, prior to that, when you were a young boy, did you ever have any accolades for being like super creative or artsy, or that you had a great imagination?
Well, I did start playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1978, so fairly early on. I'm 56 right now, so that gives you a sense of how long I've been playing. When I was in high school, I was very involved in computer science, but also at the same time, I was doing a lot of art programs. And then when I went on to Washington State University, which is where I got my degree, I was in the computer science program, but for a number of reasons, decided that I would go for a BFA. So I actually got a degree in fine arts. Lovely. With a special emphasis in design and photography and pottery, actually.
We're very similar in age, also similar path. Well, I didn't go into the gaming world like you have and things, but I started out as a graphic artist and designer, and people don't really know that. And I was learning PageMaker back in the day. And, we had Apple computers at the art school that I went to, which was Florissant Valley Community College, and it was a big deal to have a Mac. It was so interesting. We were trying to plot coordinates and trying to figure it all out back then. And then I was still at the same time drawing. Do you remember like the ink pins that we used to use, like the rapidograph pins, and trying to ink a line, and oh my goodness, and then waxing down type and rubber cement. And then it was right at the conversion between paste up and computers. Same with you? About the same time, right?
Yeah, I know Rubylith and Amberlith really well. The old school.
The old school. So here you were, you had a logo, you had some friends, you decided to do things differently. Magic the Gathering, tell us about that concept, that whole piece.
So Peter, the CEO of the company, was very good at sort of reaching out and touching base with sort of other people that he found were sort of kindred spirits. And he reached out to a gentleman in Philadelphia called Richard Garfield, and he and Richard just hit it off really well. And so Peter actually had Richard design, first of all, a board game called Robo Rally, which was the first thing Richard designed for Wizards. But at the same time, Peter had been talking with Richard and said, hey, I'd really like to have a game that is portable, plays like Dungeons and Dragons, but the gameplay time is like about an hour. And so it was Richard who actually came up with this game. It initially was called Mana Flash. And then, and it had magic and 5 different colors of magic and monsters and lands and that sort of stuff. And so as it started getting play tested, and then they started talking about, well, what should we call it? Mana Flash is not like the best name. So that's when they came up with Magic, and then the Gathering. So
lovely. So as the years progressed, many things happened. Companies bought other companies. This happened, that happened. There were patents, on this type of gaming, and it just kind of kept evolving, almost like a tree, like how a tree grows and branches out and branches out. And then you started working at Hasbro. Tell us about those early days there.
Yeah, so we sort of fast forwarded to 1999. At that time, I was the creative director and vice president of visual development for the company. And it was interesting because at the same time that we were having these conversations with Hasbro potentially buying us out, I was also designing and working on a prospectus for a potential IPO.
Okay.
So it was very interesting dynamic at the time. But we eventually went with the sale to Hasbro. And then I actually stepped away from Wizards for about a year and a half. I had left the company. I was actually overseeing about a 55-person creative team, which was fun and challenging at the same time. So I wanted to kind of just take a break. And then early in 2001, Hasbro, in conjunction with the current media director at, maybe it wasn't media director, but anyway, Wanda Gregory, who was head of sort of the internet and online presence at Wizards, they were looking for someone to come in and sort of take over the consulting creative role to relaunch Hasbro.com. It was not long after the .com crash, and so Hasbro was looking at a way to try and figure out how to get done what they wanted to get done, which is sort of centralizing all of their brands underneath a Hasbro.com banner, but also saving some money. And so Hasbro had their own development team and their own strategy team, and I sort of came in to sort of spearhead the creative team. Any
funny memory from those times in your career? Anything that sticks out to you that's memorable? Doesn't have to be funny.
That I'm able to share in public. Let's see.
Yes, please.
Well, no, I grew up in that area with G.I. Joe and Transformers and My Little Pony and Easy Bake Oven. And so to get an opportunity to work with some of these brand teams was really, as a geek, because I'm a big geek myself, it was just it sort of was like just pretty amazing. Hasbro is a very large company. Even though we acquired, I think, 2 or 3 companies in our sort of process, Hasbro has grown and sort of absorbed and taken on a lot of other companies. So working with a company that size was really interesting. I learned quite a bit. So.
I still love toys. In fact, I had the original Easy Bake Oven, and then when it evolves also, like we all do. I had to go back out like just a few years ago, and I bought one because I really loved making the chocolate cake with the white icing, and also being a mom to 3 kids, it was fun to have Elise, my daughter, and start doing those, traditions with her as well. But it was always my favorite. I love my Easy Bake Oven. And you had to have the right kind of light bulb, though, because it had to have the right heat in order for your things to bake. You couldn't just use 10 watts.
It's definitely how they're built are very scientific.
Yes, very scientific. Yeah. So then moving forward after that, there's something that you do now, which sounds super exciting. Tell us about your venue in Seattle.
So back in 2001, it was literally like 2 months before I got asked to come on at Hasbro as a consulting creative director. I actually bought a 45-acre horse ranch about 45 minutes outside of Seattle, just southeast of Seattle in a small little town. And, at that time when I bought the ranch, of which I live on it now, almost 20 years later, I live on it with my current husband, George. But at that time, we had some racehorses, and I was working for Hasbro. And it was just a very kind of busy life. But then as things change, I went through some kind of very impactful personal changes, losing both my parents, both within a year of each other. And so just readjusting and kind of refocusing and pivoting with the ranch, we decided in about 2012 to spin down the horse aspect and the racing aspect, and we actually pivoted over to be a wedding and special event venue. And
How fun. And it's Rein Fire?
Rein Fire Ranch, like reins of a horse. R-E-I-N. Yeah, right. Rein Fire Ranch. Yeah.
I have a saying too that it's raining greatness every day, but I just mean like raindrops keep falling on your head, like that kind of a rain. But
it was raining last night. It's not currently raining right now. There's a little peak of blue sky, but yeah.
And you have a family of animals, you and your husband. Tell us about your brood.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we have 3 dogs. One of the dogs, her name is Louie, spelled Lewee. She actually has around 3,000 followers on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, when people when people give us a hard time, I'm like, yes, we are those dog people. But yeah, so other than that, we have 3 dogs. We have 2 cats, 2 horses, and then a draft mule. Although I consider her a horse, but she's a draft mule. She actually is one of our newest. Well, she's been with us about 2 years, but she actually has a job. She's actually part of our mobile mule bar package during cocktail hours of weddings. So we bring her out with a pack saddle and we serve beers off of it. Her name's Petunia. So,
Well, it sounds like so much fun. And I shared my personal share with you is that my son Andrew and his fiancee Amy just got engaged in Seattle at the top of the big wheel. So who knows? Maybe they'll have their wedding at your place. But
when you said the big wheel, when we were communicating, I was like, okay, there must be a big wheel out on the East Coast somewhere. I didn't realize that they lived in Seattle. Of course,
they don't live in Seattle. They actually live here in New York, but they wanted a destination where they had never been before for their first vacation. And my son had the ring, and he surprised her. He asked the dad for, hand in marriage and all these like old traditional sweet things. But he got so excited that he couldn't wait. So they're at the top of this Ferris wheel and he has the ring in his pocket and she said yes. So Seattle is special to us for that reason as well.
So nice. Yeah. And the wheels, you're up there. It's not a small wheel. I've been up on it but that's good. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. And the kicker is that he's not afraid to play magic, but he is afraid of heights. So the fact that he did it there is kind of funny. But thank you so much. And thank you for your continued journey as an artist. It was a pleasure to actually speak with you and have you on the television show. And so from my family to your family, thank you so much. Happy journeys to you. Be well. Bye, Rich.
Bye.